Okay.
Everybody.
We're recording. I'm ready.
We
And
are so ready. So this, for two people who live in the technology of the body, the technology of the computer can be challenging, and I am not a tech person, so we apologize for not doing a Facebook Live. Evidently, they give all this hoopla around being able to share your screen, but they actually haven't worked out the glitches about sharing your screen with another person. So we had to jump over to Zoom and work out some kinks there, and here we are. So Satnam, everybody. If you're listening to this live, welcome. And if you're listening to this on a link from Facebook as a recording or through via an email, welcome. So we are here today to talk with Ravi Singh. The universe and the planets align for him to be here with us. And we're just gonna do a series of these along the way. So if your questions don't get answered today or in a chat box after the recording is posted, don't worry, because we're gonna keep doing more of these. I'm going to make sure that I trap Ravi in these small little technical boxes along the way and keep him here, keep him captive for us to share his wisdom and be here with us. So, you know, I just want to start by saying that I'm Rebecca, and I've been working on and off with Ravi for years. And one of the things that keeps drawing me back to my practice, specifically my Kundalini practice with Ravi Singh, is his ability to be accessible, and his ability to be incredibly humble in the face of being such a master at this science. And so for me, one of the things is at his level of mastery and what he's been doing for 45, almost 50 years, and yet still being this humble, accessible person who completely honors where we're at in our growth and still gently nudges us to and adamantly insists on us being warriors of our own self-growth. So for me, what comes back time and again is just his accessibility. So one thing we're going to talk about today is his trainings and how he has taken on this mindset around making it accessible to all people. And there's you know, Ravi's shrouded in a bit of mystery in the sense of his relationship to Yogi Bhajan and Kundalini Yoga. But I personally believe that Ravi is living the mission and vision of Yogi Bhajan in the sense that he's bringing yoga to the people, applicable in our everyday lives. So with that introduction, I guess just any comments about some of the things I just shared. What do you think?
wow. Yeah, you know, from the very beginning, I just was inspired to get it out there in the most powerful ways possible. And when I taught my first classes, I saw this amazing domino effect. People would get healed, their lives would get healed, people in their lives would get healed as a result. I mean, most people pay their pain forward, and that is not a sustainable strategy. We want people to, you know, stop the insanity and help, you know, to transform the discourse from pain to infinite gain. And in order to do that, they need to raise their consciousness and create a relationship with energy and bring their mind under conscious control and learn to harness their emotions for good. And Kundalini Yoga is the thing that can do all that in life as we know it. And that is why it's come down to us. That is exactly what the saints and sages of the ages intended when they created this, because they wanted people to have something that they can use in life as we know it. And that this is it. And I'm just so inspired to just keep rolling it out there and getting it to as many people as possible. And as teachers, we have to try to be where people are at. We can't expect that people are going to come up to some other level that they can't even relate to. So we need to consistently address people where they're at. And where people are at is they're overwhelmed, they're conflicted, they have anxiety, they have no certainty in their life. And so we need to give people a taste of the something, that thing that is real and enduring, and that's the experience of spirit, and that's self-evident. And when people get a taste of it, it creates an amazing momentum, and nothing can stop it. Nothing can stop it.
So I would love to pose the question based on everything you said for people who maybe not as familiar with Kundalini Yoga, or why it is that it's such an important yogic science to be incorporating into our lives right now. So what would you say is the primary difference? And I've heard your answers before, but other people haven't. What do you consider the primary difference between Kundalini Yoga and other forms of yoga, more traditional Hatha style asana yoga?
Well, I think that a lot of yoga is traditional. I think that a lot of yoga honestly comes out of the Hindu tradition, and it's just something that people's parents and grandparents did. And I think it's, in a sense, ritualistic. And I think that it makes reference to something more powerful and profound, but it really doesn't get that far beyond the body. Physical yoga, in fact, the physical yoga that most Americans know really is an artifact of the 1800s in India, when there was a movement to have a form of fitness which is truly Indian, as opposed to British. So what yoga is, Hatha yoga is, to a large extent, is a combination of British gymnastics and some of the traditional yoga poses. And that's great. Traditionally the yoga poses were done so that people could sit and do the more internal practices.
Without getting physically uncomfortable, like getting
Right.
your body live enough and comfortable enough.
So it's interesting that people write us all the time, well, do you know a pose for depression, or do you know a pose for happiness? And, it doesn't work that way. There's no pose that is all, that will fulfill every desire. It's a very simplistic approach, but people, the only thing about Kundalini Yoga that I think is problematic is it's so vast that people can't wrap their mind around it. And so people in America especially are used to thinking in terms of quick fixes. And so in their mind, there's just a pose I can do. I can relate to that. I can do a pose to deal with my diabetes or something. And it doesn't, it's not quite that simple. It almost is,
right.
But it's not quite that simple. There are breathing exercises and meditations that you can do very quickly in your life that can make a difference for something as serious as that.
So let's talk about the science, the science of Kundalini Yoga being the yoga of the nervous system and balancing the hemispheres of the brain. And you've also talked about Kundalini Yoga and the movement of the Kriya is very specific in how we move through things, actually regenerating the nervous system and working on the hemispheres of the brain and our neurobiology. So that's, to me, what the really big difference is in terms of how we can get in there very quickly and make these shifts and changes, because it's such an ancient specific technology in that way. So what do you think?
Well, not only does it configure the nervous system, it also works on the glandular system. It balances the brain and all areas of the brain. There's 2 brain hemispheres, but there's many brain areas, and they need to be working in concert for us to be truly effective. Kundalini Yoga ultimately is energy work, and that's really the bottom line. If your energy is not flowing optimally, there will be, imbalances. There will be problems. So it really works on that. And beyond all that, Kundalini Yoga helps us to access the ultimate energy, Kundalini, which is the ultimate healing force. It's life itself. Kundalini is life itself. So when we do Kundalini Yoga, we're giving life to our life. That's really the most, bedrock definition. When we do Kundalini Yoga, we're giving life to our life. And yeah, go on.
One of the things that has occurred for me, and I'm kind of a fickle yogi sometimes, I have to admit. Like, I've gotten busy and I haven't been as committed to my practice, and But I've noticed two things specifically about my practice of Kundalini Yoga that differs from my practice of other yogas. And one is, I guess, what some people call the Maharishi effect, which I call the ripple effect. And it's when you're doing a mantra and you're really committed to it, like a 40-day practice of it. I've said to you before, when I do this mantra, everybody else behaves better and differently, and the world around me and the people that are directly in my energy field are just more peaceful and more prosperous and living lives that I've always hoped for them. And I was like, is this coming from this mantra? So I call it like the quantum ripple effect. But the other thing I've noticed, and I don't advocate for stopping your practice at all, but one thing I've noticed that's really different about Kundalini Yoga versus others is that even when I stop my practice at times, the ripple effect just in general stays with me so much longer. When I stop other yogic practices, like asana practices, I obviously don't cope as well. Like my stress levels, go up and I'm not as limber and all these things. But with Kundalini Yoga, there's this ripple effect that lasts throughout your life and other people's lives because you've done it. And then coming back to the mat, again, just amplifies it again. So I've left my practice for a year at a time, and still would do little dapples in it, but I can still feel how it resonates in me even when I don't do my practice. And again, not advocating for stopping your practice, but what do you have to say about that quantum ripple effect, both in your practice and reaching other people?
The mantras in Kundalini Yoga are part of the fabric of the universe, and when you do them, you're in alignment with the universe, and the universe moves towards order and flow. And when we align ourselves with the universe, our life moves towards order and flow. I've seen miracles around these mantras, and it's not, magical thinking. There's a real mechanism at play. And that mechanism is this resonance, this vibratory effect, rings our lives like a bell. And you're right about the ripple effect. You will see when you do these practices that everyone in your life tends to improve, get it together, heal, against all odds. I see that time and again. I mean, I saw it from the very beginning, and I said, wow, I can't believe this. This is amazing.
Yeah, it's incredible. I mean, I was like, I came to you and I said, what is going on? Like, this is bizarre. I think everybody finally went to the doctor and got medication. And you were like, no, Rebecca, it's just your mantra work. I was like, okay. Yeah, pretty cool.
So in Kundalini Yoga, we don't just do mantras to do mantras. We do them because they work. And Kundalini is a tantric practice, and it's basically comprised of what works. Sound, rhythm, resonance, breath. These are things that are most powerful. The breath, I mean, that is one of the most powerful tools there is. And that's why we use it in Kundalini Yoga. If you can master your breath, you can master your mind. If you can master your breath, your mind and emotions come under your conscious control. And how many people can make that claim? People that are yogis can make that claim because they know no matter what mood they're in, they can just do something and turn it around. And if everyone knew how to do that, the world would be a far better place. So that's part of our goal, is to give everyone these practices so the world can improve, because we're, as you know, at a tipping point, and we can't afford not to turn it around right now.
So let's talk about that tipping point, because I know that one of your missions and visions is to, again, bring the yoga to every people so that they can use it in every day of their lives. So you really adjusted how you've approached your teacher training and where you're doing them and how you're doing and how accessible you are. So I want to talk about the training in a minute before we end, but I also want to just ask you, why is Kundalini so important, this specific style of yoga so important right now? Because it's obvious we're in an evolutionary leap, and it's obvious that our nervous systems and our brains are being asked to do things in a multitude of ways that weren't asked of us before. So with that evolutionary leap and the maturity of our species and the complexity of what we're being asked to do, how does that relate to the importance of doing specifically a Kundalini practice? What will happen for us? Why is it important?
First of all, there's not enough time in this life to do what we need to do to simply be okay, to simply, be happy, be healthy, be balanced. There's not enough time in this life to do it any other way, as far as I can see. I cannot think of a practice that is so multidimensional, so immediate, and so powerful that gives us all these things. So again, every day certain things need to be done. We need to clear subconscious debris, bring our mind and emotions under conscious control, reconfigure our nervous system, work on radiance. I mean, the list goes on and on. So how can you do all those things every day and still have time for a life? And the answer is Kundalini Yoga.
Okay.
And so most people are living in a way that's not sustainable. People can, bluster their way through and just convince themselves they have it together, but sooner or later something's got to give if we don't continually take care of these things. And so
when you talk about this, it brings up feelings of anxiety and exhaustion and running too hard, too fast, too long, and we're all in that state. So what is one, for people who haven't been with us for very long, give an example of one mantra they could do for a minute and a half, or just even one breath practice they could do for a minute or a minute and a half that would help them gain clarity and focus and calm their nervous system so we don't live in this constant state of anxiety and rush. What's one thing?
You steeple your hands at solar plexus level, and your eyes are 1/10 open looking down. You inhale for 5 seconds, as we'll do now. Hold the breath for 5 seconds. And exhale for 5 seconds.
Both through the nose, right?
Yes. Okay, and once again, inhale 5 seconds. Hold for 5 seconds. Exhale 5 seconds. Let's do it one more time. Inhale 5. Hold. And exhale 5. Okay, and relax the breath. And everyone, let's just meditate for a moment. Close your eyes. Just feel calm, balanced, clear, and ready. Okay, so if you were to do that for a minute and a half, that would make a difference in your day and your life. So when you are doing that, you are breathing 4 times a minute. Most people breathe between 12 and 16 times a minute, and their mind is going way too fast. When you slow your breath, your mind comes under your conscious control.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Okay, so breathing obviously is a good thing, and we could do 5 count breaths for a minute and be better off for it. Tell me the science and the rationale behind putting your hands right in front of your breastplate with the fingertips touching, looking down 1/10. Like, what's the science behind that makes this exponentially more powerful than just doing breath work?
The hands relate to the brain hemispheres. The fingers relate to the brain areas. When you spread your hands, you're stimulating the brain areas and balancing the hemispheres. Also, you're balancing the elements, earth, water, fire, air, and ether. Your thumbs relate to the ego or fixed self, but in this case, it's being subsumed by the heart center, expanded personal horizon. So all that's going on, and those are real statements. Eyes 1/10 open looking down works on the pineal to give you an overview, but it also works on the frontal lobe of the brain to help us to de-numb ourselves, which is a very pervasive form of modern malaise. People are just numbed out, and that won't do. That's not the way to live. So all that stuff is going on there. Our body is a map of everything, the universe and all possibility. And the yogis have learned that when we use these configurations, mudras, etc., in a certain way, that it's more than just symbolic, that things are happening. And so that's Kundalini Yoga.
So one of the things I've been talking about lately in my own community and reaching out to people is how our nervous system is really the communicator between the external world and the internal world, and how we lay down our wiring through our nervous system at a very young age. And so for me, these kind of things really make sense, right? So we've got, you know, if we're looking from an ancient yogic perspective on the knot eyes and how we tend to, like, you know, put pressure on something to stimulate the nerves to send information to the brain, that makes sense to me. But then you're also like getting in all these small little nerve crevices and sending information up, and with the pineal and looking 1/10 down, that makes complete sense too, because you're actually, the visual connection, the muscles in the eyes are very connected to the brain in a way where, looking down, they've done studies that show it does actually activate the frontal lobe of the brain. So when people, you know, say, well, what's the science behind it? And is there really science behind it? And is it curated and studied science? Is there data on it? And yes, there is. And I don't have links to put up right now, but I have been studying the science and the data on yogic technologies, and it's there and it's to be had. And so I love, and maybe not all, maybe some people just like to get in the feeling and feel it, but I love afterwards going, okay, why did this happen? And why do we do this? And how come this happened? So if you want to activate the frontal lobe of your brain, which is includes your rational thinking, your reasoning, your ability to critically make decisions. It's about the heart brain connection. It's about being more intuitive. So looking 1/10 down and doing your breathing is just right there, an exponential leap towards self-growth and self-awareness without changing anything other than looking 1/10 down, right? And then if you add the pressure points to send signals through your nervous system, that will open up all hemispheres of your brain, which is really important because our brain works in concert with each other. So you can't just say, I'm going to de-escalate my primitive brain and I'm going to engage my frontal lobes. You know, you have to say, like, all of these things need to have a communication together. And this is actually, in my opinion, as a, you know, layman yogi, it's like a way to open up the brain and work in concert with each other and communicate with your nervous system in the external world. So that alone, just doing the 3 sets of 5 breath and looking 1/10 down like this is a way to take just regular breathing, which is great, to a whole nother level of actually rewiring your brain. Anyway, I'm on a soapbox, but that's the kind of practice that makes Kundalini Yoga so exciting to me.
The more science makes these discoveries, the more it will continue to validate Kundalini Yoga. I would say that Kundalini Yoga is about at least 200 years of where science is, ahead of where science is now. And science will continue to make discoveries that Kundalini Yoga has already made. And that's the beauty of it. So that's one little technique that a person can do in, you know, 1 to 3 minutes. But think about all the other amazing techniques that exist in Kundalini Yoga.
So speaking of that, we are about to launch another teacher training, and that is both for teachers and people who just want the science of the yoga and the self-growth. So that's just one thing we could do that's very simple and beautiful and yet complex. But when we work with Ravi on a regular basis, we get the science behind so much. It's this broad, vast science of Kundalini Yoga. So he has a series of teachers training coming up, but I'm more here to speak specifically of the one that we're starting in Kalamazoo on October 19th. And it's a Friday, Saturday, Sunday for 6 months, which is 1 weekend a month for 6 months starting October 19th. And if you're interested in joining us, please reach out to us. And if you are going to miss a module or something occurs, we have other sister trainings that are occurring as well, so you can always make that module up. But don't shy away from teacher training if you don't necessarily want to be a teacher. But also, Ravi, share with us your words and mission around why you're taking it into these communities and doing the work that you're doing.
Well, you know,
as opposed to having big teacher trainings in Los Angeles still.
Well, the universe kind of decides, you know, where they're going to be, and there's a synergy of people, you know, in intention in different places, and they pop up in the most unlikely places. But it turns out they weren't that unlikely, because Kalamazoo, there's you know, amazing people are coming together, and it's right, and it's meant to be. And you know, we've got some very special people coming together for this, and you always see in retrospect it was meant to be. You know, it was.
Yeah. And Kalamazoo is a great location. It's a beautiful small city. There's tons of people that would host you if you wanted to be here for the training, but it's also like 2 to 4 hours from everything in the Midwest. right? So if you're in Minneapolis or you're in Chicago or you're in Wisconsin somewhere or Ohio, you can get here very easily, even just driving or a 45-minute flight. So if it's something that is if you're interested in doing, please just look on a map and see. We're in this really central location. We're not far from the coastline, so it's really beautiful if you want to make a trip out of it. And then also what we're doing is building a mentorship program. So if you are a teacher who is interested in hosting a teacher training eventually, or teaching at a certified level so that you can other people interested in it, come be with us as a teacher. And one of the things that we're working on setting up is a mentorship program. I've produced a full training and then assisted in a couple of other trainings in production for Ravi. And we've really learned along the way some tricks that work and that don't. And so one of the things we would do is support you in mentorship, in being a teacher, getting the word out there, and then eventually having success, building your own trainings and building a community. And so there's that, which is incredibly cool. And then the other thing is that if you take a 300-hour with us, one of the things Ravi offers, which I think is amazing, is that you can come to any future workshops or trainings basically for free, because his belief is that we could spend a lifetime on the mat in Kundalini Yoga and still not learn everything. And so in order for him to uphold his level of integrity around this work, it's really important to know that we don't stop learning, and we want to create the opportunities for people to continue learning and mentoring with Ravi. And so one thing that we do differently in our training that Ravi does differently is less time on the mat, but more time in mentorship. So mentorship can be one-on-one, working on really unique group projects or solo projects. And then also, if you're a teacher that wants to eventually host some training, then we as a team mentor you in all aspects of how to have success with that. So it's a really different approach, whether you want to be a teacher, you're just doing it for self-growth, or whether you're doing it to host something in the future. So there's so much hands-on lifetime mentorship and partnership with Ravi and Anna once you've joined a training and you're on the mat with us.
Yeah, I just want to say that, one time through for this material is not enough. This is really a lifetime study, and that's our idea. Well, right. We just want to keep revisiting these things. They're too amazing to just skim over. And if you don't want to be a teacher right away, that's okay. There comes a time on your path when it's time to take a next step. And, that's meant to be, and it's never, coming to a training is never convenient. And that's the way the universe sets things up. It's never going to be totally convenient. We're not going to appear on your doorstep, and say, hey, let's have a training. But that's part of it, and you have to prioritize relative to spirit. And that's it. It's a little bit of a test. And when you pass that test, your life becomes just everything goes to a whole new level. It's beautiful and it's amazing. But we have to get
that balance between, like, it's that thing you talk about. I'm channeling Ravi right now, saying I'm completely accessible to you, and I'm humbly giving the teachings to you, and you need to step up as a warrior to this work, and it's never going to be easy, but I'm gonna hold that space for you to do that. And that's what I love so much about your trainings. I mean, these commitments are never easy, but you make it not intimidating. And you, even though you're this, first line lineage master guru, which, you are just so accessible and so right there with us. And there's this subtle, like, push that you give without ever having us feel like we can't do it. But then you also, like, we're tortured too. Like, it's hard. You commit yourself to this process, but I just can't say enough about, this is my third round, and I've always returned back to this work to go deeper. And I've done a lot of asana work, and I've been in exploration of yoga for a long time. And I that every part of it's great, but in terms of, and I don't say this lightly, in terms of creating magic and miracles in my life, Kundalini Yoga, hands down, the minute you start the ripple effect, you can actually just see it in everybody around you and everything going on in your life. I tell you, I'm textbook like how to screw up your life in 10 steps or less. And when I'm doing Kundalini Yoga, it's like how to elevate my life in 10 steps or less. There's a direct correlation. So someone needs to like knock me upside the head and go, just don't stop your practice ever. Keep in your practice. So this is coming from like the fickle yogi, right? That sometimes walks away from my practice. I'm not the perfect yogi by any means, but coming back to this work and doing it stays with you so strongly and for so long that every time you return to it, it just catapults you into a deeper level of self-growth and success and miracles and magic. So if you're interested at all in participating in the training for your own self-growth, for teaching, for hosting training in the future, the one in Kalamazoo starts October 19th, and we're all here to welcome you and host you and make accommodations for you to be here with us. I would love for you to just reach out to us. Most likely you're looking at this as a recording on Facebook, or we sent it to you via email. So with this, you're going to see an attachment either in the comments of the flyer itself and where to reach us. But you can reach us also at, I'll say it now, at kyttkazoo@gmail.com. And then if you want to reach out to me personally, Rebecca, reach out to me on Facebook and Messenger, and we can talk about how we can make this work for you. Anything else, Ravi, before we finish?
Well, I just want to say that when you're in the room with all of us and we're all doing a practice together, you will say to yourself, I'm so glad I'm here. This feels so right. So
Yes.
whatever it takes to get there, remember that I just said this, and you'll just smile.
I am, because we've been through this 3 times, and it's I've seen the journey of other people that have thought about signing up and being with us, and then my own journey as well. And there's something also about the group being together that also amplifies the strength and purity of your work. And so I mean, and their videos are amazing. They're the top seller. Ravi and Anna are the top seller of yoga videos globally, and their videos are amazing. But when you take that practice and put it in a room with others and in the presence of Ravi and Anna, guiding you and coaching you through this work, it is like nothing you've ever experienced. And I work with a lot of coaches, and they always ask me, how are you so present? How are you able to see 20 layers deep? How are you able to tune in right away and figure out what's going on? And, you know, it's not a big mystery. I keep telling them, and it's not a big mystery. It's like, do Kundalini Yoga, and it will ripple effect through every part of your life, your practice, your professional, your business, all of that. And so it's not a great mystery. I've just done my practice, and I've tapped into this work, and I've not been a perfect yogi, but I've committed myself to this. And it is the one thing that is like the thread that holds everything else together. And I know Ravi has said, when you keep up, you're kept up. And I think that's so true, because you can keep up with lots of things, you know, exercising and doing more learning around your business and taking classes and making sure you get enough rest. But Kundalini Yoga to me feels like all of that stuff's important. And then if you keep up with the yoga practice of Kundalini, you will be kept up. And it is that thing that holds all that stuff elevated to a place of much more power and clarity and purity. So I'm going to stop there and say thank you all for joining us. And I'm going to let Ravi close us out.
And I just want to say one thing, that Kundalini Yoga is named for spirit. And when spirit is alive in your life, you're lit up. And that's a beautiful way to be every day, to just be lit up. And we hope that you will come be with us in Kalamazoo, and we'll look forward to seeing you soon. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody. Satnam, and we're going to do another one of these. So please make sure that wherever this link winds up, that you can post any questions. We'll gather them up. And the next one we do of these little interview conversations, we'll make sure to address some of the questions you have. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Ravi. I'm so happy to have been here with you.
Bye.